Paula Pete Works here. And I am super late because the One Piece magazine came out on June 4th of 2024. And this is issue 18, talking about Sanji and Zoro. And we got some dough fruit reveals in this magazine, as well as a bit of the Zoro novel. But to be honest with you, the Zoro novel, reading the synopsis on the One Piece wiki, isn't very interesting, to be fair. Like, one thing I do take away from it is that now we know that Mihawk's name has been spread far and wide, and that Zoro's village knows about him because children were singing a bit of a nursery rhyme about Mihawk. So yeah, Mihawk has been a figure in the sea as a swordsman for a significant amount of time. That's all I really take from that. And then two, there was a Mihawk imposter, which, I mean, that's cool that people are copying Mihawk, which is natural, but we've never really seen that in the manga until S-Hawk showed up, and we're going to talk about S-Hawk kinda in a minute. But yeah, moving off for that, not really interesting. We also get this cool art of a young Kaido and a young Big Mom on a sea bike having a good time. This gives me hope that young Big Mom will return in the manga. It will be a great glow up. And there's reason for it, because seeing as how her Yonko position has been revoked, she now has a reason to get serious and not just rest on her laurels. So yeah, can't wait to see it. Hope it happens. And it looks like Kaido has a different tattoo in this artwork. I just noticed that because it's different from what he has as a full adult, because looking at the legs, this kind of looks like teen Kaido when he first started taking over Wano and all that. So yeah, it's weird his tattoo changed. Or this could just be a replacement for the art, because Big Mom also has a tattoo on her leg, and you know she only has the one heart tattoo. So yeah, I guess you shouldn't take this one too seriously. Fair, I just thought that was interesting because it looks like his normal tattoo. Odd, okay, but great art, love the art. Now, the important part about this magazine is that we get reveals of the Super no Mi, also known as the Dice fruit, and we get a reveal of Mr.2's fruit, known as the Mani no Mi, or the Clone fruit. Let's talk about these fruits in general first. Seeing as how this magazine is talking about the significance of Zoro and Sanji as the wings of the Pirate King, I think the reason why these fruits were revealed together is because Mr.2 and Das Bones, also known as Mr.1, were the first two big opponents that were on a world stage that Zoro and Sanji took down. Mr.2's infamy isn't well known, but we know he does have a bounty poster. But Das Bones we know all too well about, because apparently everybody knows who Das Bones is. And I just find that really weird. So Das Bones was infamous. And then, I guess even more impressively, Mihawk knew who Das Bones was when they clashed in Marineford. I mean, I use the word clash very loosely because Mihawk just kind of cut him down. But yeah, that's funny that he just knew him. And then now it's even funnier that both Mihawk and Das Bones are a part of the same organization in Cross Guild. So all that is very interesting. Even more interesting in that both of them have been fused together in a way to make the entity known as S-Hawk, who is a Seraphim. So yeah, a lot of weird relationships between Das Bones and Mihawk. So odd. But that just goes to show you how significant Das Bones is in the narrative of One Piece, especially for Zoro. And this was the first time after his defeat that Zoro even got a bounty. So yeah, Das Bones is super important. Mr.2 less so, but it's still a significant fight for Sanji, because the important part about Mr.2, and by extension Das Bones, is that both of them basically set the framework of how fights for these two, meaning Zoro and Sanji, are going to go in the greater scheme of One Piece moving forward. Because a lot of times with Sanji, it's some sort of mental or physical barrier that he has to overcome against an opponent. With Mr.2, it was a mental barrier because he would turn to Nami as a defense, and then Sanji had to outwit Mr.2 and then outfight Mr.2. With Zoro, it's been a matter of how do I cut this guy. So with Zoro, it always seems to be some sort of jigsaw puzzle or Rubik's Cube that he has to figure out in order to find a way to cut down his opponent or overcome his opponent. You see this with Mr.1. You see this a bit with Kaku. And then, of course, you see it with King. And you see it a bit with Ohm. Though with Ohm, I think, and the other Sky person who uses guns. But with Ohm and that guy, if I'm not mistaken, it was a matter of range. So it was a matter of overcoming the range difference of the two, because the guy who was a Shandurian used guns, and then Ohm, who is a Birkin, used his weird cloud sword, which is a very interesting cloud dial that we've never seen again. But yeah, with those two, I think it was a matter of range, which is something that Zoro was developing during Skypiea, the whole 180-pound caliber Phoenix attack, which, if I'm not mistaken, is an evolution of Hawkwave, because Hawkwave was just sort of like a wave of air, whereas the pound Phoenix attacks have always been like a compressed air cannon. So the Phoenix is an upgraded version of Hawkwave, is what I'm getting at. But in talking about Zoro's many opponents, it's very funny that the Dice fruit, as it's depicted, looks like a bunch of bananas. And I find this very funny because, as you know, the Ox fruit model giraffe is also bananas. So that makes me think, I wonder if the dragon fruit model pterodon will also just be a bunch of bananas, because he's kind of having this theme now. That he fights a bunch of people who've eaten devil fruits that look like bananas. I find that very funny. Very, very funny. Very cool. I don't know what the clone fruit is supposed to be. I do appreciate the pun that the clone fruit is coming in twos, which is reflective of the nature of the clone fruit, its abilities. It copies people. That's the whole bit. That's the whole joke. I don't know why they're like weird nuts of some sort or pears. I'm not sure why, but I do find that interesting. And two, what's interesting about this fruit, just in the greater scheme of One Piece, is that it was kind of used for the same thing, usurping and espionage, because Mr.2 turned into Cobra during the Alabasta arc, and then the old Kurozumi hag turned into Odin's father during the Odin flashback. So I find it funny that this fruit was used to turn into kings to do some very tactical usurping. Very interesting, very cool. The Dice fruit, however, on the other hand, has just been used to fight Zoro, I find. And I can't wait to see how far S-Hawk takes it, because the interesting thing about the Dice fruit in the hands of S-Hawk is that this is the first time that the Dice fruit is in the hands of someone who has any relationship to swordsmanship. Because from looking at all the Seraphim, like S-Shark and S-Snake, it's pretty apparent that the Seraphim gained the fighting prowess of the person they were cloned from. So this is the first time the Dice fruit is in the hands of a proper swordsman. So in theory, S-Hawk should end up being way more dangerous than Mr.1 ever was. Can't wait to see it. On that, I have a pet theory that I'm going to present in a longer video, but I find it something that I just want to talk about now since it's of the season and it's of the topic of this video. I wonder if Mihawk is going to do like what he did with Zoro. And what I mean by that is, seeing as how there are so many swordsmen, I mean oodles upon oodles of swordsmen in Cross Guild, because you have Kabaji, you have Mr.1, but especially those two, I wonder if he's going to train them, because we know he has some micron of respect for Dasbone. That's fair. But I would love to see a glow up for Kabaji. Could you imagine Kabaji trained by Mihawk? Because he's not a slouch. He's just really in theme with his party tricks. So it would be nice to see Mihawk take the initiative and train up some of the swordsmen in Cross Guild who appear to have potential. So that's just something to keep an eye out for the future. But I just wanted to bring it up because it might happen. It would be really cool if it did. But moving forward, I do like that there's been so much lore around the clone fruit, because getting back to the Kurozumi grandmother who had the clone fruit before Betham, Mr.2, we know that she turned into Shiki and she turned into some mysterious blonde woman. Now, my headcanon on the blonde woman is that that might have been Stussy, not the clone Buckingham Stussy, the original, because we've never seen her eyes before. And this is being made before the Rocks Pirates appear again in the anime. So I don't know if her eyes are green, which is a difference because the clone Stacy's eyes are blue. Don't know, but it's going to be interesting to find out because there aren't many blonde women that would be associated with Shiki other than Stussy. And then, of course, this woman doesn't look like Glorissa. I'm still willing to bet that the young version of Glorissa was not a blonde and that she wasn't as pale as the woman that the Kurozumi grandmother turned into. So most likely that was Buckingham Stussy, which opens up the door for a whole bunch of questions like, when did she touch Shiki? When did she touch Stussy? How intimate is she in the entirety of the Beast Pirates organization, or the Rocks organization for that matter? And it's funny too, because she called Devil Fruits, if I'm not mistaken, which is a very interesting thing within itself, because of course Devil Fruits and Wano are referred to as jutsu, as the Tontara referred to them as a power, right? So it's a cultural dialect barrier there. So it's going to be very interesting to see if her story extends further than the Odin flashback. And in terms of Betham, it's going to be interesting to see if Cross Guild or some other organization ever breaks out Impel Down, because I wonder when he comes back, is he going to be a reference to Nami? And the reason why I keep harping on this, because there was a video game. It was One Piece Burning Blood. And in that video game, you have a costume for Betham in which he's just posing as Nami. Why this is significant is that when he transforms into Nami, you can take this as game limitations because, of course, Betham is way taller than Nami, and there's a whole bit about rigging and stuff. I won't bore you with that. But it's just interesting that when he's Nami as a costume in that game, they give him his own height. So you have an extremely tall Nami clocking in at 7'10". So you have a 7'10" Nami using Betham's fighting style. This is interesting because this type of transformation is not just for a video game. It can exist in canon because he has mixed parts of his own body with the attributes of others before. Like when he was fighting Sanji, he had a technique called the funniest face in the world technique, in which is just like his face with Usopp's nose. So yeah, it's weird. Oh, also, just to correct something, in One Piece Burning Blood, and I found this on the wiki, it is the post-time skip version of Nami. So that's even more interesting. He turns into a version of Nami in that game that he has never touched. Because and we see this in Impel Down, he only has the pre-time skip version of Nami, which she has the short hair. So in that game, he turns into the long-haired version of Nami, and he keeps his own body proportions. It's her, just a 7'10" version of her. I always found that costume extremely interesting because it's so unnecessary. And seeing as how there's so much fan demand, I guess, behind this version of Betham, that's just how he may look moving forward. I don't know, but it would be a very interesting choice. With that being said, I think that's all I have for you today. Kind of excited to see where Betham, Mr.1, and S-Snake end up in the future. And this was just a video talking about the significance of the Dice Fruit and the Clone fruit. I hope you enjoyed. Give me your thoughts.